We are back and we are going to talk about the consensus 101 in rookie dynasty drafts, maybe the consensus 101 at some point in just straight up dynasty drafts. Jacob, I want to start with you. And listen, it's kind of a weird situation because we all agree, I think, that he is by far and away the best running back in this class. At the same time, how much time do you spend on the guy that everybody's already made their mind up taking 101 and ranking as the top running back? So, Jacob, just give us a few numbers or your impressions of just how good Ashton Jeanty is.
So good. We could take as much time as we wanted. I had a friend ask me the other day, he's like, is this guy legit? And I monologued about him for 10 minutes. He's like, I didn't even know I was that interested. And now I'm like extremely excited for football season to be back. I'm like, yes, he's Jeanty is so fun. All that I want to add on Jeanty, you guys already like have heard almost everything. I feel like it's obvious what he does as a rusher. But some people nitpick his receiving profile because he didn't get a ton of receiving last year or like overall. But in 2023, he had 569 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. He had a 13% first down per route run rate and 3.33 yards per route run. He avoided 24 tackles on 43 receptions. Those are all just absurd. So I absolutely think he can do it as a receiver. I think that, Boise just kind of figured out like we don't necessarily need to get him the ball that way. We can just pound it over and over and over on the ground. But yeah, he's so good. I could add stuff on the rushing, but I think it speaks for itself. I think it's pretty obvious.
Matt, I went through the process this week. I was updating my dynasty tiers, and I haven't added the running backs to the rankings yet because especially the running back position, draft capital and landing spot matter so much. But I put Ashton Jeanty in tier 1 with Bijan Robinson and Jameer Gibbs. And I try not to give away too much from the RSP, but one of the things I always tell people I look at pretty early on when I'm consuming all this information is you'll do running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end rankings over the kind of a composite of the last 3 seasons. And I go to look at the running back position, like just how high is Matt on Ashton Jeanty? And he's not just in the same tier as Bijan Robinson and Jameer Gibbs, but he is listed as the best back of the last 3 years. Does he deserve a tier of his own? Should he already be the best running back in Dynasty?
No, but okay. He's certainly in tier 1. So like to me, the tiers, like you alluded to, the tiers more important than the rankings.
Right.
So, there are things about Bijan Robinson's game that are better than Ashton Jeanty's game. But at the same time with Jeanty's game, there are things that he does well that Bijan doesn't. And when I rank players, oftentimes with scores, what happens is that, maybe Jeanty's better coming out of school than Robinson was as a decision maker. Maybe he's better in some ways as a pass protector or a receiver than what Robinson was. But they were both good enough and will be good enough to see the field. So really in that sense, they're going to, it's going to come down to their fit within the system. But as a talent, just as a pure talent, what makes Jeanty special and possibly the kind of player who might fit the hype that he's getting pre-draft, which is rare, is that he has what I would call run stamina. And when you think of the great backs in football, for me, it started with growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and hearing stories about Jim Brown from my parents and grandparents. And then, watching Earl Campbell alongside Bigfoot and Andre the Giant in the 1970s, and then seeing Walter Payton and William Andrews, and then starting to study players and seeing guys like Barry Sanders and Adrian Peterson, and we could move on to probably Marshawn Lynch as the last one that I would put in that range. All those players I just mentioned, when they begin a play and it's a long run, you often see that they break a lot of tackles and make a lot of people miss, or at least multiple tackles or multiple people miss. And at the end of runs, they look like they still have more energy to dictate terms than the people chasing them down, and that they seem to overcome that. Ashton Jeanty has that kind of run stamina. He's not a power back in the way that, a lot of those guys I mentioned are. But I also mentioned Barry Sanders. He's not Barry Sanders and moves, okay? He's more of a Dalvin Cook, D'Angelo Williams type of player. I would say D'Angelo Williams is the comp that I have for him. J.K. Dobbins, if J.K. Dobbins could have stayed healthy and stayed on the Ravens, I think he had that kind of upside. He's the type of player that you'll watch him and he'll break a 60-yard run, and in the first 15 yards, he probably made somebody miss at least once. He breaks a tackle or bounces off a hit and breaks a tackle. And then at the end of the run, he makes two people miss and then carries two people into the end zone from 15 yards away, or is able to work through contact. And when you're tired as a runner, you can't move as dynamically and make those types of adjustments if you don't have that run stamina. And very few backs have that. So considering that he's carried the ball as much as he does, he's getting as much yardage as he is, and he's still doing this at the end of games, that's a special quality with him. So I would say that's the standout thing about Jeanty, is that, he has good contact balance, but it's really more of a, you're not going to get a clean shot on me. And I'm so good at starting or bending around or seeing and eliminating angles that it looks like someone bounced completely off of him. And it's more of an optical illusion more often than not, where it's like, yeah, that wasn't much of a hit, but the fact that he mitigated the angle so well that it looked like he bounced off that hit is special.
Jacob, I just want to put his value in context a little bit more. You and I share a dynasty league together, at least one, and I have the 101 in that league in this upcoming draft.
Yeah.
You and I wasn't even going to mention the fact that I have the 101 because I traded for your pick. But if you want to bring that up, you can bring that up. And you recently put Devon Achane on the trade block. And I'm just curious to put it in context. Like, what would you be happy to give up in addition to Achane for the 101, which is presumably Jeanty?
Why do I feel like there's a negotiation going on in subtext on this show? Okay, sorry.
I'm pretty interested in this. Yeah, I would give Jeanty Achane in a second pretty easily. I really think Jeanty is going to be the 101 soon. Like what Matt just alluded to is like just icing on top of the cake, but it is like he can handle an entire workload and just wear people down. I've never seen anything like him in his ability to like control when he doles out punishment or when he, just lets it bounce off of him and doesn't take it. Like people talk about the touches wearing him down, and it's like I almost never see him get the wrong end of hits. I think he's going to be so good. Yeah. I mean, I'm not helping myself in these negotiations, but yeah.
Well, I will say, like, I think one of the big takeaways for me is you rarely hear someone talked about as having the ability to carry the load for an entire game and being very explosive. Like usually we hear of a guy who can carry the load for a whole game. We think, yeah, he's probably getting 5 yards max per carry, and he just hammers the defense over and over. If you've got a guy that can do what he does and regularly break off 60-yard rushes, that's going to be a real problem for the NFL. But again, Ashton Jeanty is the 101. He's the number one running back in this class. Almost no one is going to argue with that, but